Hello everybody and welcome to the Prognard. I am your host Jacob Williams. So this may be my most unhelpful video I've recorded thus far. And as many of my subscribers will know, that my channel is extremely eclectic, so I've already had some pretty unhelpful videos for the majority of gamers. But you know, that's kind of my thing on YouTube, so that's what we're going with. What I have in front of you is the map for a game called Twilight of Shogun. Okay? So this is a game that was published in the Japanese War Game Journal, appropriately enough, Game Journal issue number 56. All right? Now, this is a Twilight Struggle knockoff, okay, if you couldn't already tell by the Twilight in the name. Okay, and why this video is going to be unhelpful for most people is that this game is entirely in Japanese, okay? Some background, because I don't think I've gone over this. I have a minor in Japanese language and culture. I was a non-traditional student going back to college, and one thing my wife told me when I went back to college is that I should take at least one class that doesn't really count towards my major, but it's just fun and I love it. And I ended up taking Japanese language classes because I was a big-time otaku or anime fan, and it was something that I wanted to do. So I have an affinity for most things Japanese, especially late feudal era Japanese literature, pop culture, and that sort of thing. So when I saw this pop up on the Twilight Struggle Board Game Geek page, I knew I had to check it out. Luckily, my sister-in-law is from Tokyo, and before she immigrated over here to the U.S. this past year, my brother-in-law was able to have her pick me up a copy of this game journal. Okay, so I have never played this game. All right, I do speak a little bit of Japanese, but nowhere near enough to play this. And unfortunately, my sister-in-law doesn't have the English skills yet, or really the time to do any kind of translations or crib sheets or anything like that. Man, I am hoping someone from GMT will see this video and want to invest in bringing this over, because I think this looks really cool. So this video is just going to be, I'm going to show this to you the best I can, and I don't know, we're going to try to piece some things together, but again, this is going to be ultimately useless because I don't speak Japanese. Let's talk about some of the things that the game came with. Obviously, it came with a rule book, which, again, is in all Japanese, so I can't tell you anything about it. I mean, I might be able to pick up a few things here. Like this just says Introduction, Hajime ni. What does that say? Gameu. So, yeah, there you go. That's about as helpful as I can be. It came with a rule book. It came with these cards that are, you know, reminiscent of Avalon Hill style games. Because I know that this is a Twilight Struggle ripoff, probably tell you that that's the ops value decky, I think is what that says up here. So maybe this indicates what deck it goes to, like an early war, mid-war. And I think that's supported because here we see decky again, and then there's a different kanji in front of it. So that probably tells you, and also obviously the color header probably tells you that they go in, that there's probably separate decks, a lot like Twilight Struggle. You know, I kind of did this. Let me finish talking about the cards, and I'll go back to that. And then they're Avalon Hill style, so you punch them out yourself. You know, you see these a lot, like in C3I magazines. So it comes with these cards. See how many of them are there. There's what, 16 to a page, 4 of them. 4 times 16 is 24, 64. So 64 cards. So this would probably be a short game. Oh, I have a bad habit of knocking that tripod around, don't I? Oh, let's get this back into frame. This is already a terrible video. I mean, might as well go for broke. So what drew me to this game, other than my love of Japanese history and that it's a Twilight Struggle clone, and Twilight Struggle tends to be one of my favorite games, is that this is recreating what they call the Bakamatsu. Okay, so when they say Twilight of the Shogun, the Bakamatsu was the war that ended the Shogun rule in Japan. And those who may not be quite as familiar, up until the 17th century, Japan was a monarchy, okay? And then they had an emperor, and they still technically have an emperor. The emperor is like the Queen of England. He has no official power, but he is the head of state. So in 1600, Tokugawa Ieyasu at the Battle of Sekigahara defeated an heir of Toyotomi to unify Japan. And by unify, that's a really pretty word for conquering it. Okay? And then he instituted a military rule called the shogunate. Okay? Shogun is just a military position. It's like the equivalent of a 4-star, 5-star general in the U.S. And the shogun became the head of government. Tokugawa Ieyasu made the decision to keep the emperor alive, which is pretty unusual for military takeovers. Usually you kill the old regime. And I don't know if it's because the Japanese believed, at least at the time, that their emperor was a descendant of the gods, so it would give you bad juju to kill the emperor. So they didn't. They kept him alive. Let's fast forward to the 1850s, and you know, ever the interventionists, the U.S. Forced their way into Nagasaki Harbor, and I believe Nagasaki Harbor is over here. It's either over here or up here somewhere. I'm bad with my Japanese geography. I think that this is Nagasaki, because I believe that's Naga for long, and I don't know what that is. And it's a port city, and I'm pretty sure that's what that symbol means right there, that anchor. Anyway, one of our naval officers, Commodore Perry, blasted his way into Nagasaki Harbor because they wanted to use Japan as a coal refilling station, because America wanted to increase its trade in the Pacific. And at the time, Japan was a backwater country that was pretty behind the times. And so they thought it would be easy to conquer it. And at the time, Japan had a strict isolationist policy under the shogun. And the only country that was given official permission to trade, generally speaking, was the Dutch. So you'll see a lot of Dutch things in feudal Japan, including Dutch firearms were really heavily imported. So the Bakamatsu, there was a clan called the Choshu, which I'm pretty sure that's the clan symbol for right here. And then this seal right here is the Emperor Meiji's seal. Let me see if there's one closer to the camera. That this little red flower thing is actually, the game also came with some counters, as you might imagine. And I probably should have talked about that when I said what all the game comes with. And then these are the, this flower pattern right here is the symbol of the emperor. And then they call these hollyhocks, was the symbol of the Tokugawa clan. Anyway, the Choshu clan up here in Choshu province decided that the shogun was no longer looking out for the interest of the Japanese people, and they wanted to reinstate the emperor. And then that civil war, which happened roughly the same time as our civil war, took place, and that was called the Bakamatsu. All right, so there you go. There's a history lesson for you. So that's what this game is depicting. Spoiler alert, the Choshu clan is eventually successful in overthrowing the Tokugawa government, and they reinstall the emperor, Emperor Meiji, and then you have the Meiji era. Okay, and that's considered the end of feudal Japan, more or less, because shortly after Meiji gets into power, the samurai class is abolished, and it's illegal to carry swords on the street, and so the idea of the samurai goes away. And I think the official end of the samurai happens with the Satsuma Rebellion, which happens about 10 to 20 years later. But anyway, so this game depicts the Bakamatsu. And from what I can tell, so we have cards kind of like Twilight Struggle, so I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of card play similar to Twilight Struggle, where Tokugawa side will play a card, and then Choshu will play a card, and then, if their events favor the other player, it's something like that will trigger. I can't say that for sure because I can't read the cards, but that's kind of what I'm assuming. And then this is what I'm really going to go out on a limb for. I'm thinking that these territories don't actually represent countries. They may represent individual provinces, but I'm not 100% sure because I can't read it. Okay? My best guess is, like I said, that's Nagasaki, so maybe these represent cities. Or what they could represent is actually individual clans, and I'm thinking that that's what these represent. Because I know one of the big things in the Bakamatsu was to get clans to rise up against the Tokugawa government. So maybe these influence markers really represent gaining clan loyalty, if I had to guess. They appear. Oh, and then maybe to further back that, you see that these have clan symbols in them, and I don't know too many of them for sure. I'm pretty sure that's Choshu. I definitely know that's Tokugawa, the Hollyhocks. And don't get too excited. That's not a Nazi swastika. That's called a manji. And you can tell because the blades are spinning counterclockwise as opposed to the Germans clockwise. And yes, I know the Germans took it from Buddhists and blah, blah. I don't want to get into a conversation of that. But anyway, and then I think some of these other symbols you can see in the Sekigahara game from GMT. Like I think that might be Ueji or Uejima. I'm not 100% sure. I think that symbol is in Sekigahara. Pretty sure that one is too. Somewhere. Not 100% sure. So I think that these might be different clans that you can get. But there also does seem to be a naval aspect to it, because I'm pretty sure that's Nagasaki Harbor. And you can see it has a VP. This is where 3 VPs, I guess, if you control it during some sort of scoring. It's broken into regions. So you have like a light blue, a green, an orange, some sort of yellow. I don't know if these are 2 different regions. And then a purple. And then, yeah, they must be 2 regions because you see a score box here. Though it's interesting what these 3 and 5s mean. I would be interested to read the rules and see what that means. So this is probably presence, control, domination, if I had to guess. It looks like you might get some extra VPs for controlling ports. I thought I saw another port over here. Guess I was mistaken. This is, I believe this is the Kanto region. This must be Edo, if I had to guess. Looks like it has some sort of permanent Tokugawa symbol. Edo, if you don't know, was is modern day Tokyo. Uh, Tokugawa moved the capital from Kyoto, which is somewhere way over here. It's on the coast, but I'm not quite sure how this is blown out here. I'm looking. I do know the kanji for Kyoto. This means Kyo, or capital. So I wonder if this is Kyoto. It could be. And then these probably aren't geographically perfectly accurate, right? These are probably zoom-ins. But I know, if I'm looking at this right, Kyoto would be in this area. Osaka is kind of in this area. Maybe this is Kyoto, because that is the symbol for capital in Japanese. And it's worth 5 points, which kind of would suggest that it's important. So what I was saying was that Tokugawa moved the capital to Edo during his reign for strategic military reasons. And it became Tokyo after the Bakamatsu. Meiji ended up officially making Edo the capital, where I think it was more of a de facto as opposed to de jure. What else can I say about this that looks interesting? This is the turn track that says turn track. I don't know what this is. This seems to be some sort of... I think one of these is some sort of naval marker, because there seems to be... right here, it seems to be some sort of shipping marker of some sort. I'm guessing these are some sort of military ops. I noticed that some of the numbers on here are red, so maybe that's some sort of battleground or super important clan, if I had to guess. Oh, and there's a boat right here, so that makes me think that there's something to do with shipping here. I don't know what's going on up here, but you have some sort of turn track. Maybe this is the equivalent of the space race. But though it looks like they kind of got a tug of war going on. And that kind of looks like a Rio. So maybe this is some sort of currency tracker. I don't know. Here's the point tracker. And you have the tug of war scoring, it looks like. Just like Twilight Struggle. These are probably some sort of turn sequences. I don't know what that says. That's Akushin. Oh, action. So I guess this is telling you all the actions you can do. What else is there to say about this? Probably not much. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and end this first look here. This looks super interesting. I can't wait to get it in front of my sister-in-law at some point, and maybe she can tell me a little bit of what's going on. I've got a hunch that there's a lot of game here, and I really hope that GMT, Victory Point Games, some of them will take the initiative and bring this over to America. That would be so awesome. There's very few, if any, really good Bakamatsu games out there, and it's something that I have a big passion for and would love to see that topic represented in American wargaming, because I feel like everything is dominated with Edo period type stuff. So your samurai swords, aka Ikuza, aka Shogun. Well, I mean, you have Sekigahara. You've got the what's that Command in Colors version with samurai. I forget the name of it, but most of the Japanese war games we have are either World War II Pacific or feudal Japan samurai fighting. We don't have any really good, I'm going to say modern era games, and when I say modern era, obviously I'm excluding World War II, because that's probably the most covered war game topic with the Japanese in it, clearly, probably by leaps and bounds. And then obviously second most popular is feudal Japan, like early Edo period, as opposed to this, which would be technically Edo period, but it's at the tail end, so we're talking late 19th century. I would love to see more games in this era. Hell, even a Japanese-Russian war game would be pretty interesting when Japan made themselves prominent on the world stage by smacking the crap out of the Russians in the early 20th century, before World War One. All right, I guess I'm getting too much into the history. This has been a first look. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really want to play this game. Maybe one day it'll get translated and I'll get that chance. Thanks for watching.